Okay, good morning. It's 9 a.m. I'd like to call the October 20th, 2020 City Council meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Dabeline.
Here.
Soldner.
Here.
Bagwell.
Here.
Garza.
Here.
Pyros de Carvalho.
Here.
Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Pastor Darrell Peterson will be giving this morning's prayer. Thank you.
It's amazing what you see today. You see people combing their hair, getting everything straight, but now they're adjusting their mask just so it's just right. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father and gracious God, we thank you, Father God, that you know the mess we're in. You know everything about it. You know the ins and the outs and the ups and the downs. And Father, I just thank you that Father, as we continue to stand with you, that Father, we know that fear should go away. And Father God, also the healing power flowing through the people. And Father, we thank you for this nation, but Father, we thank you we need the revelation of you developed into each and every person's heart. That Father God, we know who to put our trust in, what to do, what to say, and what not to do. We thank you, Father, that we walk by faith, but we also walk with common sense. And I thank you, Father, we pray for this county, this city, and the nation, Father, that, Father, we know that there's going to come to an end of this thing. But, Father, we thank you it does in a speedy fashion. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Next item, please.
Item 4, proclamations.
Okay, we have two proclamations this morning. And the first one is for Red Ribbon Week. Is Shaylee Mendenhall here with youth leadership? Awesome. I should have guessed by the salt block. I was wondering who that was under there. Okay. Whereas the red ribbon was chosen as a symbol commemorating the work of Enrique Kiki Camarena, a Drug Enforcement Administration agent who was murdered in the line of duty and has come to represent the belief that one person can make a difference. And whereas the Red Ribbon Campaign was established by Congress in 1988 to promote this belief and encourage a drug-free lifestyle and involvement in drug prevention efforts, and success will not occur overnight, our patience and continued commitment to drug education and prevention are imperative. And whereas substances abuse is particularly damaging to one of our most valuable resources, our children, and a contributing factor in the 3 leading causes of death for teenagers, accidents, homicides, and suicides. And whereas the goal of Red Ribbon Week is to involve families, schools, businesses, churches, law enforcement agencies, and service organizations in all aspects of this campaign, and to establish an atmosphere that supports awareness, education, and ongoing initiatives to prevent illegal drug use. And whereas the Red Ribbon Week campaign theme promotes family and individual responsibilities for living healthy, drug-free lifestyles without illegal drugs or the illegal use of legal drugs. And whereas the Hutchinson City Council, along with Rise Up Reno, value prevention for the health and safety of all our citizens, and October 23 through 31, 2020 has been designated National Red Ribbon Week, calling on all Americans to show their support for a drug-free state by wearing a red ribbon and participating in drug-free activities during that week. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Jade Pyros de Carvalho, Mayor of the City of Hutchinson, hereby proclaim October 23 through 31, 2020 as Red Ribbon Week in this city and encourage all citizens to join the rest of the state in promoting the Red Ribbon celebration and a drug-free America. Would you like to say a few words?
No.
No?
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Well, okay, our next proclamation will be accepted by Anthony Frischenmeyer with Prairie Independent Living Resources, and this is for Disability Employment Awareness Month. Whereas the recognition and protection of civil and human rights for all individuals rests at the core of our existence as a nation, and whereas the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act articulates and ensures the inalienable rights of people with disabilities, and whereas the American Association of People with Disabilities estimates that there are currently 56 million people with disabilities in the United States, and the unemployment rate among people with disabilities is 70%, And whereas efforts such as International Disability Mentoring Day seek to educate potential employees and employers concerning this untapped pool of skilled, talented, productive, and knowledgeable workforce. And whereas knowledge of disability concerns, issues, and rights serve to benefit our society as a whole by providing the foundation upon which understanding begins. And whereas October has been designated as National Disability Employment Awareness Month, now, therefore, I, Jade Pyrus de Carvalho, Mayor of the City of Hutchinson, Kansas, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2020 as Disability Employment Awareness Month in the City of Hutchinson, and call upon all citizens to observe this month with appropriate programs and activities that affirm our determination to make the promise of equality and civil rights for all a reality. Would you like to say a few words, Anthony?
Of course, thank you.
Great.
First, I'd like to thank the city. Typically, at this time of the year, we're getting ready for our annual Disability Mentoring Day. This would have been our 20th anniversary. As we know, COVID kind of put a stop to that. So we're kind of doing that virtually. But with COVID, it's given people with disabilities a unique chance to become employed and work from home. So thank you. This really means a lot to us every year. It shows that the city is with us and willing to make sure that people know that people with disabilities are employable and they should be employed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anthony, for all your work.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, please.
Item 5, oral communications from the audience.
Okay, now's the time in the meeting where we allow people in the audience to address the council on issues that are not on the agenda. If there's anything you'd like to bring up, please approach the podium, state your name and address, and limit your remarks to 5 minutes. Going once? Okay, hearing none, please call the next item.
Was there anyone by phone, Mayor?
Oh, I don't know. Is that
Just
with that?
wanted to give them the opportunity.
I actually did hear somebody on the
I
phone
did
when I
too.
was giving the proclamations. It kind of threw me off, so. Oh. Oh, okay. Okay.
That's why I checked.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that, Linda. Thank you so
Item
much.
6, consent agenda.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Dave-Line?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Bagwell?
Yes.
Garza?
Yes.
Pyrus de Carvalho.
Yes, next item, please.
Item 7, consider ordinance authorizing general obligation bonds, Series 2020B.
Okay. Angela Richard, Director of Finance, and I believe I have Piper Sandler and Kutak Rock on the phone conferenced in with us in case you have questions. Yesterday we had 2 bond sales and we are very pleased with the results on both of them. The first one is 2020B. This is for new funding and we had 4 bids. The winner of the bids was the Baker Group in coordination with RCB Bank in Hutchinson. So I was very pleased to have some local participation. They won the bid with an interest rate of 1.82%.
Wow.
And you'll see that the highest there was 2.19 or 2.19. So we are very pleased with those results. As a reminder, the projects that we are bonding for are the LEC remodel, the UV building, Apple Lane, Zoo Electrical, the airport restrooms, and the secondary treatment facility. We were able to reduce the bond size by approximately $500,000 because Apple Lane came in lower than we had anticipated on their bids. So we reduced it for that, and then we reduced it further for the premium that they offered. So the actual amount of the bonds is $6,670,000. So we would recommend, with the legal counsel and bond counsel's recommendation, to adopt the ordinance first and then adopt the resolution using the amount $6,670,000 to approve accepting this bid. Are there any questions?
What is the maturity date on the bonds?
They're 20-year bonds.
They're 20-year bonds, okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
Angela, that's pretty significant difference between what was in the packet and what we're actually bonding. So it just goes back in our pool for CIP program? Or?
No, we're not taking out any extra.
Okay.
The actual amount that we are getting for the projects is 7.1 million approximately. So that amount will pay for the projects and then the bonding cost itself. We're not taking out any additional. So the actual bond amount is 6.67 million, and then we're getting a premium of 470,000. So that'll get us to our 7.1 million needed.
Okay.
Well, I would move to approve an ordinance authorizing the issuance of delivery of $6,670,000 principal amount of general obligation bonds, Series 2020B of the City of Hutchinson, Kansas, and providing for the levy and collection of an annual tax for the purpose of paying the principal of and interest on the bonds as they become due, and authorize the mayor to sign.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Dayblight?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Bagwell?
Yes.
Garza?
Yes.
Pyrus de Carvalho?
Yes, next item, please.
Item 7B, consider resolution authorizing general obligation bond series 2020B.
Seems like there might be a
I like
A
where your
typo.
decimal is.
I know. A little bit of a typo there.
Yeah.
Is that?
I think that was a typo.
That's a typo, yeah.
I don't suppose we're getting all this for $6,000.
Six.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was done very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. No, no, that's
It should be
okay.
the same, 6,607,000.
Okay, okay.
All right, motion to approve a resolution prescribing the form and details and authorizing the delivery of $6,670,000 principal amount of general obligation bonds, Series 2020B of the City of Hutchinson, Kansas, previously authorized by the ordinance of the city and authorize the mayor to sign.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Further discussion or questions? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Dayblight?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Bagwell?
Yes.
Garza?
Yes.
Pyrus de Carvalho?
Yes, next item, please.
Item 7C, consider ordinance authorizing general obligation refunding bonds series 2020C.
Okay, our second bond sale was for 2020C, which we're refunding. We are refunding 2012B, 2013A, 2013B, and 2014A. We had 3 bids for this, and again, the Bakers Group with RCB Bank of Hutchinson won this bid at 1.06%, and the highest there was 1.21%, and we had 3 bids. You may be wondering what the difference between this interest rate and the other one is. These bonds will be paid off sooner. A lot of the bonds will come due in the next 4 years. So because it's a shorter time frame, it's a better interest rate. So that's why we have that difference of interest rate. These will actually be for $7,280,000. The difference between that and the 7.9 is the premium that they offered as well. So we have that difference there. Rather large premiums this time. The new interest rates will bring us present value savings of $262,000. So that's what we'll be saving with this refunding. So the legal counsel, bond counsel have reviewed everything, and they recommend approving and adopting the ordinance and again the resolution in that order for $7,280,000. Do you have any questions?
I had a quick question, Angela. These interest rates seem lower than inflation.
They
Are
very
we
low.
are we refinancing everything we possibly can?
I believe that our bond counsel has
Okay.
looked at all that we may be able to refinance. And these are the ones that represent a 3% present value savings.
Okay.
That's what we look at to
Yeah.
make it worth it.
Yeah.
So the other bonds out there probably don't recognize a 3% savings.
Is there any feel for how long they'll stay this low?
Dustin was saying that's correct what I said
Okay.
about they've
Okay.
looked at everything. Dustin, do you know how long they're predicting interest rates to stay low?
Well, you know, that's a great question, Angela, and in fact, I think that there's really been no indication that we're gonna see a pressure in interest rates rising, and so I would say for the foreseeable future, we would expect some, favorable interest rate levels like we've been experiencing here the last 3 or 4 months. We do continue to monitor other outstanding bond issues of the city, and in fact, there'll be other issues that are eligible to be refinanced in the next couple of years also. And so as those bonds become eligible to be refinanced, we will also evaluate other outstanding bond issues for savings opportunities.
Okay.
That's right. Some of them aren't callable yet, so we're not able to refund them yet.
Would it be, this is outside this issue, but would it be unwise to consider moving up capital projects or bonding more?
I've not been hit with this as a possible solution. It's not something we typically hear, but
Well, I mean,
We
when
probably
you
do
have a
have-
1% interest rate,
we probably do have some projects that would be certainly eligible on the time frame for that. We'll look into that.
okay. I don't know if there's any appetite for that. With the rest of the council, you don't typically ask to borrow more money, but at 1%,
As long as it wouldn't affect the mill levy increase, that would be my only concern.
Yeah,
For
I think we
sure.
would have to consider that as well.
That would be
If
an
we
issue.
can maintain that level, certainly it might have some appetite, but certainly not to
Yeah.
increase the levy.
I would concur with that. Seems like if we can get a project done, I mean,
Plenty of projects to be done, so that's
yeah,
not a bad idea.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it might save substantial funds over 20, 30-year period. Anyway, thank you for letting me veer off there. Are there further questions on the Series 2020B? Or C, I'm sorry?
I would move to approve an ordinance authorizing the issuance and delivery of $7,280,000 principal amount of general obligation refunding bonds, Series 2020-C of the City of Hutchinson, and providing for the levy and collection of an annual tax for the purpose of paying the principal of and interest on the bonds as they become due, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there further questions, discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Dayline?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Bagwell?
Yes.
Garza?
Yes.
Tyros de Carvalho?
Yes, next item, please.
Let's see, that was for the ordinance. Item 7D, consider a resolution authorizing general obligation refunding bonds.
I would move to approve a resolution prescribing the form and details of and authorizing the delivery of $7,280,000 principal amount of general obligation refunding bonds, Series 2020C of the City of Hutchinson, Kansas, previously authorized by an ordinance of the city, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Dayline?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Bagwell?
Yes.
Garza?
Yes.
Tyros de Carvalho?
Yes, before we move on to new business, I did notice that a group walked in from SAC New Beginnings in the Health Department. Thank you, Angela, and Bond Counsel. And I was wondering, City Manager, should we move their presentation here, or would you like to do it at the end of the meeting during council comments?
If this is the one for New Beginnings,
Uh-huh.
is that right? I was going to do it during city manager report.
Okay,
If possible.
no, that's fine with me.
Thank you.
I'm sure that they'll enjoy this thrilling chain of events here. Okay, next item, please.
Item 8A, consider approval and awarding of CDBG CV grant funds for small businesses.
Good morning, Madam Mayor and members of the
morning.
council. My name is Ryan Vietluck, Director of Planning and Development with the City of Hutchinson. Before you this morning is our final programming of our CDBG CV grant program. A request to award $27,570 in CDBG CV grant funds to 9 small businesses in the city of Hutchinson. We had a little bit of a difficulty with the committee having more interest than we had funds for. So we were able to meet. We received 10 applications, 9 of which were deemed eligible for grant funds.
You are currently the only participant in this conference.
I'm going to turn this off.
Okay.
Here.
No one came to your party, Ryan.
Nobody's interested in this now. Sorry about that. So yes, we had 10 applications that were received. 9 of them were deemed eligible for grant funds. The committee reviewed each application, including their documentation of losses from COVID and what the grant funds would be used for. Because of exceeding the amount of the requested amount exceeded the amount that we had on hand, what the committee decided to do was most fairest was to base the awards on the number of jobs that would be retained. That is one of the primary purposes of this grant program. So that is what you will see. So it's based on the number of employees that each of the businesses have. So just to kind of give a little bit of a refresher of where we're at on everything, we have awarded $92,430 of the $120,000 that the city has available to award. And of that, we've actually paid out about $70,000. So those funds are going out to the community, and we have had several of our initial grantees that have already spent their grant awards down. So very, very much needed in the community. What the intent would be is that we would allow for this grant round. The awardees would have until January 31st of 2021, giving them about 4 months to spend all of the funds down. At that point, we would do a final accounting and maybe come back for a very small another award, depending on if we have any cash left. With the intent is that this grant does have to be spent down, though, by June 15th of 21. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
I just have one, Ryan, and I hate to admit my ignorance. Where is the Red Coach Inn?
The Red Coach Inn is on 11th, just just west of K61.
By the flowers.
What?
On the north side of 11th.
By the
there.
flowers on K61 at the stoplight from Hades.
Okay. What did it used to be called?
Oh, it's been several
it's had
things.
several lives over the
Oh,
years.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Now I know which one you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I did not go driving to look.
Ryan, I had a question about what accounts for the delay between approval and actually awarding the funds. Is it a reimbursement?
It is a
or-
reimbursement process.
So we approved them, but the funds are still going out.
Yes. Mhm.
Is that on the business owner's side, like paperwork?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, initially, we awarded these back in June, and it really took us really until about September to get funds out to everybody, start getting funds out to everybody. Part of that is because this is a new grant program. The state kind of kept coming back to us and said we need additional information from business owners' tax returns, different type of documentation and things like that. So we've been working with them to get that. We certainly think now this grant is up and running, we'll be able to get funds out to folks a lot sooner. But really, for the grantee awardees, it's going to be how quickly they can get their receipts and stuff to us.
Okay. And is there somebody on the administration of the grant side, like SCED, that's walking people through what they need? Okay.
Myself is doing that as well, and then yes, we work with SCED, especially if we have issues where maybe I'm not getting a good response or something from somebody. SCED is able to reach out and usually break that loose. So.
Yeah, well, I really commend you for your persistence on this. I know a lot of cities and counties in the surrounding area have had trouble administering these funds because of the constraints inherent in the grant. So there's a lot of kind of regulatory barriers to accessing these funds, which is unfortunate. So.
I will also say, and I've heard this from a couple of business owners, they've said that this grant program has actually made them better business owners because they've had to get their books in better order and things like that. And so that's kind of an unintended benefit of this, but I've heard that from several of our awardees, and they're actually very grateful for that. So
Great.
Good.
Should any of these business owners not follow through with the paperwork, would we just have those leftover funds to allocate in a month or two or
yep.
at some point? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions or a motion on the CDBG CV grants?
Motion to approve the recommendation of the CDBG CV Review Committee to award $27,570 in CDBG CV grant funds to 9 small businesses in the city of Hutchinson.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Dave Light.
Yes.
Soldner.
Yes.
Bagwell.
Yes.
Garza.
Yes.
Tyros de Carvalho.
Yes, next item, please.
Item 8B, consider approval of grant application to the Kansas Department of Health and Environment.
Good morning. Once again, Ryan Vietlich, Director of Planning and Development with the City of Hutchinson. This item before you this morning is a grant application to the Kansas Department of Health and Environmental, Health and Environment for their Brownfields Targeted Assessment Program, and this is on behalf of Interfaith Housing and Community Services. This is based on the former St. Elizabeth's Mercy Hospital on 20th and Monroe. As most of you all are aware, Interfaith received this property as a donation back in 2016. They had intended initially to develop it as income qualified apartments. They did apply in 2019 to Kansas Housing for low income tax credits for that, and were not successful in that. They were basically told at that point that to rehab the building, it just really didn't make a lot of sense, and so they're kind of in a difficult spot right now. They do still have plans to develop the site, but basically redeveloping the building would be too cost prohibitive. So to facilitate the next steps of developing the site, a brownfields assessment would need to be completed. So brownfields assessment is usually, for former either industrial sites, gas stations, hospitals also are usually included because of chemicals and things like that. This is a grant program through KDHE where they would conduct phase 1 and phase 2 environmental assessments on the sites for basically laying out what would need to be done to clean up the site for redevelopment. So the city really doesn't incur any cost with this, but they do need basically a sponsor, and so the city is certainly in support of getting this site hopefully redeveloped, and so that is why we are looking for council to allow for us to apply for this on their behalf. I have Clint Nelson here from Interfaith, who can maybe give a little bit more history or a little bit more insight on kind of what they want to do out there.
Yeah, I'd like to hear about that. What exactly does the assessment do? Because you're going to take the building completely down because you can't renovate it, or are you still trying to renovate the actual building?
Really what the assessment's going to look at is look at the site, look at what's inside the building, what's on the actual site itself, what is the potential contaminants that are on the site, and then what would need to be done to clean that all up. So, and Clint can jump a little bit more in on that.
Ryan, a question I have, I certainly support the brownfield process, but is there any likelihood that once you become a successful recipient of a brownfield application, that either the city and or the applicant becomes liable for any environmental issues that may precede the application?
So what will end up happening at the end of this is that Interfaith and the city will receive basically a report from KDHE on what needs to be cleaned up on the site. Any cost would be on the property owner, which would be Interfaith, but I know that there has been some discussions with the city if there's any potential assistance that we can provide if that happens. And once again, Clint can talk a little bit more about that as well.
In other words, any forced liability responsibilities to Interfaith Housing?
I'll let him speak to that.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning, Council. Clint Nelson, Director of Housing Development with Interfaith. Thanks for having me this morning. So to speak to that last question, my understanding is it is a no-cost Phase 1, Phase 2 environmental review, and then the report and recommendations for abatement or remediation. We are not required to perform those activities. However, they're going to give us their recommendation for what needs to happen next. Did that answer your question, sir?
Yeah, just to make sure that you, as the applicant, are not forced by some requirement that you need to proceed with a cleanup process.
Well, but if they start to tear it down, don't they have to?
Yeah, so regardless of the outcome, I may back up a little bit. I know Ryan mentioned we were not successful in accessing funding in 2019. We also reapplied for low-income housing tax credits to raise the building and redevelop the site here in 2020. That application was also denied, and at the same time we were awarded a project. So the 3 to 5 year outlook for that building and getting funded with tax credits is really off the table at this point. Our board and committees have been investigating, strategizing what's our next move, what is our responsibility at this point as the owner of that structure to the neighborhood and to the city. And so Sarah had asked, is that building coming down? That is an option on the table right now. To perform the demolition, the asbestos has to be gone.
Yeah.
Getting this abatement piece out of the way will free us up to, have not only that option to remove the structure, redevelop, but if there was another developer that had interest in the property, having a clean property obviously would give them a good start as well. So that's where we're at right now. I had approached KDHE about any larger pool of brownfield funding that might pay for the demolition. That would really be a hard application to see awarded, to make a case that we would have to demolish the building to address the environmental issues, but this smaller pool of funding is readily available at the state level, and I think it's our logical next move. So, would request the city to act as our sponsor applicant.
Okay.
I got a question.
Yes,
You
sir.
said sponsor, no, we wouldn't have no, like, he said that we wouldn't have no responsibility of being a sponsor?
That's correct. In the investigative, the Phase 1, Phase 2 environmental performed by KDHE, that's no cost to the owner, to the sponsor. Then we'll receive a full report with recommendations. I believe they even have their own abatement firms and contractors that will provide us with cost estimates, and then it would be back on the owner to decide how we proceed with that. If we do proceed with the full abatement remediation activity, there is a cost-sharing piece between KDHE and Interfaith, a 50-50 cost share. So we could see some savings on that as well. Nothing from the city though, financially.
Okay.
So this is basically just an avenue for a nonprofit to get a hold of those funds via sponsorship from the city.
Correct. Yep.
Well, then we don't have no, I think we need to do something, get going. This is a part we need to get going. So I would motion that we approve the submittal grant application to the Kansas Department of Health and Environment in Brownville, and I ask the mayor to sign it.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Before we call the roll, I had one question about timing of notification on this grant. Do you have any feel for that?
I believe it's an open cycle. Did you say that?
Oh, okay. So it would be relatively soon. I know that there are calls from the community to have something done for that site. So I'm encouraged to see this, and hopefully third time's a charm.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah.
If I may add in, you're all aware Monroe is a main corridor. And,
Mm-hmm.
the building externally is not looking any better. Constantly we're chasing out vandals and boarding up windows, but inside is pretty far deteriorated at this point. So yeah, something needs to happen, and we do feel that responsibility to try to take the lead on that right now.
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure. Well, thank you. Further discussion? Please call the roll.
Dave-Line?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Bagwell?
Yes.
Garza?
Yes.
Tyra Stick Carvalho.
Yes, next item, please.
Item 8C, consider bids for 2020 residential street maintenance project.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council.
Good morning.
Morning.
Jeff Peterson, sorry, getting my organized here somehow. Jeff Peterson, Director of Engineering. Last Tuesday, we opened bids for the residential street maintenance project. We had 2 bids for this, and it includes some of the things we talked about at the last council meeting. First of all, it includes crack sealing and chip sealing of the residential streets. Those will be paid out of the residential maintenance reserve funds and crack sealing reserve funds. We're also doing scrub sealing from 24th to 43rd, which is a collector street, which that portion gets paid out of arterial street reserve funds. And then we also have, which we've included last year, a portion of the Jim Martinez Trail that gets maintained for this also, which we did in cooperation with the Parks Department so we can get better prices for their portion of the work too. So last year we did the other portion of the Jim Martinez Trail around Cary Park also. The low bid from Circle C Paving and Construction LLC was $1,188,824.80. We've worked with them for the past few years. They've been the
Yeah.
primary contractor for these projects lately. So we do recommend that the City Council accept the low bid of $1,188,824.80 and authorize the mayor to sign the contract for Circle C Paving. Oh, and I should say it was under the engineer's estimate and the CIP amounts that we have for the 2021 budget too. So, any questions on anything specifically?
Jeff, I had a question about the Jim Martinez Trail and the materials used for kind of repaving that. Is it going to be the same material that was initially used on the trail that we've had so much trouble with, or is that a different
No, well, last year we
composite?
did, it's a sand seal, and we seem to have pretty good luck with that. It's a finer material. It's a chip seal essentially, but with sand, and then it adheres to the asphalt that gets placed on the trail, and so it gets swept off pretty good, and so it's not loose or anything. It does provide some, I guess I would say, friction there,
Mhm.
so it's not slick and those types of things. So
Okay.
I think it was a pretty good product last year, and the Parks Department was happy with the results of that.
Okay.
So,
Great, thank you.
and you can see it kind of, the portion that's, well, it's not on there, but it's kind of the portion from Plum Street onto the west was done last year, so
Mhm.
with this treatment, so.
Further questions on the residential street maintenance project?
I would move to approve the bid of $1,188,824.80 from Circle C Paving and Construction LLC and authorize the mayor to sign the contract subject to compliance with all legal requirements.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further questions or discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Dave-Line?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Bagwell?
Yes.
Garza?
Yes.
Tyra Stick Carvalho.
Yes, next item, please.
Item 8D, consider supplemental agreement for Washington Street Bicycle Boulevard.
Good morning again, Jeff Peterson, Director of Engineering. The Kansas Department of Transportation is updating their grant award with the City of Hutchinson for the Washington Street Bicycle Boulevard, which is work on Washington Street from 17th to 27th, just the first phase of this. This project is administered by the Kansas Department of Transportation, and they're expecting this project to be bid on about in March of next year. So This supplemental agreement updates the maximum award of the grant from $362,915 to $375,000. It's an 80-20 grant, which the grant pays for 80% of the eligible costs. The city would pay for 20% of the eligible costs. So that roughly, the city's obligation for this work for this work is about $93,750. We also paid for the design of this also. So the city was originally awarded this grant in late 2017, and we approved the original contract in January of 2018. The bicycle boulevard along Washington Street was first identified in the city's bicycle pedestrian master plan that was originally completed in 2014, which took a series of public meetings and surveys and everything. So it took quite a bit of work to kind of identify these corridors. This was the first one that was identified to kind of begin work on. This project actually involves a number of different things, from 17th to 27th. It's not a bike lane, actually. It's just an area where bicycles and automobiles or vehicles can share the road or coexist through that thoroughfare. So it provides some signage, some traffic calming. There's traffic circles that are proposed on 18th and 24th to slow traffic down. The signage, some of the stop signs will be changed, so Washington Street will be essentially just a corridor where most people can move through that pretty easily. It doesn't change at 25th because that's a pretty busy street. And then at 17th is kind of the end of the project. So it really aims to keep vehicle speeds about 20 miles per hour and then implement these traffic calming things to kind of maintain that speed through there. Some of the work on that.
So is that 20 miles an hour, is that going to be the new norm for the city?
Well,
You wish,
I knew
John.
you'd like this part.
Okay.
But but in this area, it is.
Did you say yes to that, Jeff?
Well, yes,
New
on
norm.
Washington Street from 17th to 27th. I'll say that for now. So, it does a number of things. There is a couple blocks of brick streets that do get some maintenance, asphalt overlay from 17th to 19th. The block from 18th to 19th is really in very, very, very poor condition.
Yeah, it is. It's not good at all.
With the existing storm sewer, kind of, there's some settling around the existing storm sewer, so that gets taken care of, so it's a smoother ride. And then there's also some sealing of the additional streets up that corridor. So that there is some improvements to our city streets as a byproduct of this. So I think it's a good deal for the city overall. So with that, I do recommend that the city council approve this supplemental agreement number 1 and with Kansas Department of Transportation. And if you guys have any other questions, feel free.
So when would it be, sorry.
Go ahead.
When is your estimated time for it to be completed? Since
Well,
it's been going on for a while now, right?
It has been going on for a while.
It's almost comical how long this is taking.
Yeah.
5
So-
years or more.
Yeah, it's been a while. I would say if it bids next March, it should be completed through the summer, and so we
Do
don't
you have intentions on bidding it next March?
It bids in March, and actually
Okay, so you
Kansas
do-
Department of Transportation bids it.
Oh.
We
Okay.
don't bid that. It's administered by them. This grant
Is that why it's been taking so long?
Well, that's one of the reasons why. There's a lead time for a number of these items through KDOT that we have to go through. And it's probably been a little bit, not on the back burner, but we've been trying to kind of complete some other ones going through and get those finished. So this one is our next one up that we need to keep moving and get completed. So we're just trying to catch up. We had a little bit of a backlog on a number of projects, so.
Well,
yes,
thanks for
it does need to
sticking
get
with it,
completed.
Jeff. I know
Yeah.
that the cyclist group has been
Oh, yeah,
banging this drum for the better part of a decade, so
Yep.
excited to see that we're finally.
And this is just
moving
the
forward.
first phase. At some point, we'll work toward moving that down to the Washington Street, down that corridor, so we can get down to Cary Park at some point. So I don't, the timing of that's out there, but at least
Yeah.
this is the first phase, so.
Jeff, that's,
oh, sorry.
Jeff, that's my question. When they're gonna
Yeah.
start heading to Cary Park in the south end of town?
That will probably be as we go through different budgets, what we can allow and get done.
So we are looking to go that way too, right?
Yes, we are.
I
So-
think it's a far safer and better route than the Main Street route that was discussed in previous years. I think Washington is a nice,
And it's
and
a-
Washington could use the better road construction
Yeah,
down it.
there is some.
So I think there's
I think there's a benefit to
that.
it for both
Yeah.
bicycles and vehicles. We don't really want to encourage more traffic on those by any means, but, because they're fairly low traffic.
As long as you have your speed.
Yeah, some of those things, and it does even take into account the existing one that's on Hyde Park too, so. The existing
Yeah.
traffic circle, there'll be 2 others that'll be constructed with this project, so.
Those look nice. That'll be a nice addition to
I
those
think it will be,
neighborhoods.
too.
Yeah.
I think it's a good road pick as far.
We get kind of secondary benefits for some
Yeah.
improvements too, so.
Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion on this item or further discussion?
I'll move to approve the supplemental agreement number 1 with the Kansas Department of Transportation for the Washington Street Bicycle Boulevard and authorize the mayor to sign the contract, subject to compliance with all legal requirements.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Dave-Line?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Bagwell?
Yes.
Garza?
Yes.
Thursday Carvalho.
Yes, next item, please.
Item 8E.
Thanks, Jeff.
Consider risk and resilience assessment and emergency response plan.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, Brian.
All right, my name is Brian Clinton. I am the Director of Public Works. The America's Water Infrastructure Act was signed into law in 2018, and this law requires water systems serving more than 3,300 people to conduct a risk and resilience assessment, and also to update or complete or develop an emergency response plan. The risk and resilience assessment will evaluate the vulnerabilities, the threats, and the consequences from potential hazards to our water system. And those hazards include both natural hazards and malevolent acts. This risk and resilience assessment will also look at the resilience of our water system infrastructure, which includes our water lines, our wells, our water towers, our booster pumps, our 2 Class 1 deep disposal wells, the water treatment center, and our supervisory control and data acquisition system, better known as our SCADA system. And that system is used to monitor and control the equipment that produces and also treats the city's water. The second piece of this project is the emergency response plan. And so what this will do is it takes what we learned from the risk and resilience assessment, and it will develop strategies and identify resources that we need to improve our resilience of our water system. It'll also establish plans and procedures for us to respond to natural hazards or malevolent acts that threaten our drinking water. So the city sent out a request for qualification statements to 4 engineering firms, and we got 3 firms to submit their qualification statements. And CDM Smith was selected based on a couple things. The first was their project approach. They've developed an Excel spreadsheet to assess risk, which is more customizable and also more user-friendly than the EPA-developed tool. They also have, they proposed to train city staff on how to update this Excel spreadsheet and develop a schedule for when updates need to be done so that we're doing this on a regular basis, say every 6 months to every year for different pieces of this assessment. because in 5 years, we'll have to recertify. So by doing the continual updates, this recertification in 5 years won't be a big deal, and it'll be able to be done by city staff. The second reason why we selected the CDM Smith team was their project team. Their project manager and also their lead engineer are just wrapping up this assessment for Water One, which is a large water district in the Kansas City metro area. And they're going to be able to jump right into this project and hit the ground running as they are wrapping up that other assessment. They also have an impressive cybersecurity expert who helped develop the American Water Works Association Water Sector Cybersecurity Risk Management Guidance document. And cybersecurity is just becoming much more important in today's world. So it's an important piece that the city of Hutchinson needs to take a look at. So the proposed agreement with CDM Smith is an hourly not-to-exceed contract in the amount of $150,000, and staff recommends that the council authorize the mayor to sign the agreement. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Brian, I've got a series of questions here, Mayor, if I may, but just so you know, at the outset, I've reviewed your material several times, and at the outset, I'm really troubled initially, and then I'll get into some questions if I can. I'm really troubled, and again, it's a philosophical issue on my part, but I'm really troubled by the fact that this act was approved and that it appears to me that it's an unfunded mandate that the federal government has placed on all cities across the country that serve more than 3,300. In your material, you had mentioned the fact that failure to comply with the WIA requirements may result in a daily fine from the EPA. And I know you're just a messenger. I understand that. Yeah, I understand that perfectly. Do you interpret this to be a mandatory certification process that we may or may not be subject to fines if we would not proceed with the certification process?
We would be subjected to a fine, and it's significant fine if we don't certify our risk and resilience assessment and our emergency response plan.
Okay. In your material, you say the word may.
Right. Yeah.
Tell me how you interpret that may versus will or shall or.
Right.
Or
and the information that I've seen, it's like, I want to say it's a $40,000 to $50,000 a day fine. So when they're throwing out numbers that large, I mean, they're very serious about this being done. So, yeah, I guess I wouldn't want to challenge them and find out, because it's a significant amount of money. And John, I understand it is an unfunded mandate. You're absolutely right on that.
And I'm troubled by that.
Yeah, but I think in the long term, it's a healthy thing for us to go through. The city completed a vulnerability assessment in 2002, as a result of the terrorist attack for our water system. That vulnerability assessment focused strictly on terrorist attacks. So what this is going to do is it's going to help us understand how resilient our infrastructure is, not only to the terrorist type threat that we have, but other types of events, natural hazards, ice storms, losing power, a tornado that goes through town, if our levee were to fail and flood out our northwest well field, those types of things, which is an important process for our staff to walk through and to document how we respond to those types of things, and also identify improvements that we need to make so that we are resilient and we are able to provide clean water, safe drinking water for our community.
What do you, as you follow this, what do you think is behind all of this?
Yeah, I'm curious. These are typically
In terms of
reactive.
what typically, is this the Flint, Michigan issue, or it has nothing to do with that, or in the wisdom of safe water, this mandate was approved by the Congress?
Right, and honestly, I think it's probably a need that folks have seen, that Again, we haven't updated our vulnerability assessment. We started an update in 2008, but never quite finished it. So that's the last time the city of Hutchinson has really taken a hard look at our infrastructure and our emergency response plan. So this is a new requirement, and it's going to be required to be updated every 5 years.
But in your judgment, we've got certainly systems and procedures that standardize our safe water delivery. Maybe you can share with us, what are we currently doing to assure the citizens that we have safe water currently now?
Oh, sure. Yeah, and there's a lot of testing
Right.
that is done. We're doing 40 samples a month. We've got constant chlorine monitors 24 hours a day in 4 places throughout the system that are automatically reading to make sure that we've got adequate chlorine residual in our water system. And we've got, again, our water treatment center is monitored through our SCADA system 24 hours a day. And we've got operators on call 24 hours a day that answer any alarms that come up, no matter what time of day, no matter what day of the year.
So going through this process, what would change?
I think the change is thinking through a big catastrophe, which fortunately the city of Hutch has not had.
Right.
And what would happen if a tornado came through and took out a water tower or took out the water treatment center?
I understand your what ifs, but again, I'm going to go back to, I'm just basically fundamentally against this unfunded mandate that comes down from the Congress that here again is required by the Hutchinsons of the world and all over the country. It just, to me, I'm fundamentally against that.
But good news is the people that we are using, this will be a one-time pay, and then we set up, and then for the future, we will renew ourselves.
Yes.
So on a good note, I appreciate you looking at that for further cost savings in the future to set up your city staff to be able to renew without us having to pay an outside agency to do the renewal.
Right.
Is that fair to say that
Yes,
you'll be
it is.
renewing yourself? Okay.
As a city employee that used to work on some of this stuff, this needs to be done. You have alarms in your water wells now with the SCADA system. The SCADA system watches it done. I've always wondered that as a city electrician that we're vulnerable, and I think it needs to be done. Maybe within 5 years we can reevaluate how it's done us any good. And I never thought of it like Mr. Davidline said, but I do understand what he's saying. Government, we have too much government now.
Yeah.
But as a city employee that's worked there before, has worked on the SCADA system, has worked on different stuff, yes, we need to have some kind of to see what else is out there. Terrorists is all over the place. So I always wondered. So I think this needs to be done.
Further questions for Jeff or or Brian, or a motion on this item?
I motion that we approve the agreement with CDM and Company for assessment professional services and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Dave-Line,
No.
Soldner,
Yes.
Bagwell,
Yes.
Garza,
Yes.
Cyrus de Carvalho.
Yes. Next item, please.
Item 8F, consider Class 1 disposal well bypass project engineering services agreement.
Good morning again, Brian Clinton, Director of Public Works.
Long time no see.
Yeah. The city gets our raw water from 17 groundwater wells throughout the city. 3 of those wells are remediation wells that pump contaminated groundwater to our RO treatment plant, where the contaminants are removed, and then we're able to use that water in our water system. I've got a map here. Okay, just to orient everybody on this map, north is up. The water treatment center is located right here at 23rd and Severance. The different colors
Excuse
on the
me.
map are plumes of contamination. So this pinkish color right here is a chloride plume. This bluish is our carbon, or is the TCE plume, and these green blobs are our carbon tetrachloride plumes. The remediation wells are, we got 5 remediation wells, and 3 of those wells pump water, the contaminated groundwater. So EW2, RW2, and RW3 are pumping that contaminated groundwater and sending it back to the RO treatment plant through this dashed pipeline right here. And that dashed pipeline follows the Grandview Industrial Channel up until it gets to the RO treatment plant there at 23rd and Severance. So then 25% of that RO treated water comes out as a concentrated brine that is then sent back to our 2 deep disposal wells. And so again, there's a second pipeline that comes from the RO treatment plant along this dashed line. And again, it's following the Grandview Industrial big ditch all the way here until it gets to the 2 deep disposal wells, which are right here. And so then that concentrated brine, that concentrated waste stream is injected into the Arbuckle Formation, which is 4,800 feet below the level of the ground. So the city's become concerned about the long-term viability of our 2 Class 1 disposal wells. First reason is the seismic activity that we've seen, and the concern about what's causing the increased seismic activity around this area. Now, no one has blamed the city of Hutch for causing any of the seismic activity that we've seen in this area. And there are numerous Class 1 wells and Class 2 wells in Reno County and throughout the state of Kansas. However, there is always the potential for new regulation or requirements associated with operating these 2 deep disposal wells. The second concern that staff has is the increase in our static fluid level that we're seeing at our 2 deep disposal wells. And so this graph shows that increase in static fluid level. So those wells went into operation right around 2005, 2006. And you can see the depth of the static fluid level was there in the 425 foot range. Over time, through 2018, it's gotten up to around 280 some feet. So the static fluid level has increased over that time period. And if it continues to increase at that trend, it the wells would no longer be viable in about 26 years. So if it continues to increase in about 26 years, we won't be able to utilize those 2 deep disposal wells. And right now, we can't clean up the groundwater contamination, and we cannot operate our water treatment center without these 2 Class 1 disposal wells.
When did the, so we've had the wells since 2005, you said?
Yes.
And then, how long have they been used for the wastewater brine? Since the 2005?
No, the water treatment center went
It went in-
online in 2009.
Okay, so that would be about there.
Yep.
Is that the main cause of the increase since the 2009?
No, the cause of the increase is just the huge amount of usage of the Arbuckle Formation for all kinds of waste streams. You know, when the oil prices went really high, we saw a large pressure wave kind of radiating from south central Kansas out, which was, a lot of folks were seeing increases in their static fluid levels during that time.
Because of fracking?
Well, it's not fracking, but it's the byproduct
Well, yeah.
of having to dispose of that waste in the Arbuckle Formation.
And geographically, Brian, the Arbuckle Formation encompasses what?
Well, the Arbuckle Formation is just this large.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, how big a part of the state?
It's a you know, we've got, I know in Johnson County, there's a Class 1 well.
Okay,
And I know there's oil industry up north of Hayes
okay,
and Class 2 wells. So I think it encompasses a large portion of the state of Kansas.
okay. So the increase is a result of everybody across the state. doing the same thing
Right.
that we're doing. Okay,
Right, yeah.
gotcha.
So due to these concerns, the city hired Burns and McDonald in 2018 to complete an RO treatment efficiency improvement study. And that study was completed in the fall of 2019. And this study identified short-term and long-term ways to reduce or eliminate waste being sent to our disposal wells. And I'd really like to focus on that long-term solution that we landed on. And that was to pump the waste stream to the wastewater treatment facility and blend it with our wastewater effluent. Then discharge that combined stream, our wastewater effluent, plus this waste stream that's going to the disposal wells, discharge that into the Arkansas River. Now, this project was estimated to cost $4 million in 2019 dollars. So this study was submitted to KDHE in October of 2019, and in March of 2020, after KDHE had had time to review the water quality data that was in this study, the water quality data of that waste stream that was in the study, KDHE suggested discharging that waste stream directly to the city's GVI ditch. And discharging that stream directly to the GVI ditch would significantly reduce the overall cost of that project because it eliminates a pump station and eliminates about 2 miles of pipeline that we were looking at having to construct. And so again, I'll just go back to this map here. And again, this pipeline, that dashed line, that is the GVI channel. So these pipelines parallel the GVI channel until they get to the disposal wells. So eliminating flow to the Class 1 disposal wells, it's got several benefits. One, the city can, if we did this, the city would be able to operate our water treatment center without relying on the disposal wells. Two, we would keep water that's able to be discharged to the Arkansas River in the water cycle rather than disposing that water into the Arbuckle Formation 4,800 feet underground. And three, we would be saving capacity of the Arbuckle Formation. And this Arbuckle Formation is a valuable resource for numerous businesses throughout Reno County and throughout the state of Kansas that really have no other options of disposal for their wastewater. So the attached agreement with Burns and Mac is to study alternatives and develop a preliminary design and cost estimate to discharge this waste stream into the GVI channel. And there's several challenges to this project that they'll be looking at, and I'll just name a couple of them. One is we are going to have to evaluate the chloride concentrations and make sure that the amount of chlorides is not too great to discharge into the Arkansas River. We're going to need to figure out a way to eliminate the volatile organic compounds, that contamination, before we dump that water into the GVI channel. And we're also going to have to look at and develop water quality triggers, because if water quality of this waste stream becomes too contaminated to dump into the GVI, we'll have to switch it back and send it to the disposal wells, the deep disposal wells. And the big concern right there is an old brine well collapse, similar to what we had happen, I think, in 2004, 2005. John, you may remember better than I do. That brine well collapsed right in this area, right by EW1. That's also right by where IMC has their remediation wells. And if there was another sinkhole brine well collapse, we would see a chloride spike in this area.
Was that the big industries
Yes.
issue? Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
that affected.
Where they had to buy out all those homes?
Yeah,
Yes.
affected
Displace those
Caryville.
people.
Yep, that's the
Yeah.
area.
Got you.
Yep. So again, if we had another one of those, the chlorides in the groundwater would spike. It would become too too high a concentration to put into the GVI. So we've got to figure out a way that we could separate the pipeline that pumps from this area so that we could turn that off from the GVI and send it down the disposal wells. So just one of the challenges that we've got to figure out and that we'll do by completing this study and preliminary design. So the proposed agreement with Burns and McDonnell for professional engineering services is an hourly not-to-exceed contract in the amount of $90,599. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you
I
have.
had a question. If we're redesigning all of this, how does that affect what we just talked about on the previous measure, about our risk assessment?
Right, and it won't have a large impact on that. Really, the only thing that we're doing is looking at reconfiguring some pipelines, and our hope is that since these pipelines are adjacent to the GVI, it's a very small amount of pipelines. We'll have to look at installing some valving and maybe some
So
monitoring, some
originally
SCADA system.
we put it down in the well.
Pardon me?
Originally we put it down in the
That's
wells
right.
because it's. So how do you justify not putting it in the wells anymore?
Right, and when we began this project, the
Yeah.
quality of the water was worse than what it is today.
Okay.
So there's been some improvements in the cleanup of this area. And so, again, KDHE looked at the water quality data, particularly the chlorides, and they're like, this water could go into the GVI channel rather than down these deep disposal wells.
Okay.
And we need to take a harder, closer look at that and make sure we get KDHE's concurrence early in this process. That is still the way to go.
Yeah,
So would this also trigger like a long-term monitoring contract for those levels? Or would that always be done by the state?
No, we'll be responsible for monitoring the quality of the waste stream.
And this doesn't actually authorize the discharge into the GVI, it's just looking at if it can be done safely.
That's right.
So it's possible that you could come back and say, that's not an option, we still need to,
That's right.
okay.
That could be an option. And we'll have to get a NPDES permit to dump this water into the GVI, which eventually makes its way to the Arkansas River.
On the GVI channel, do you see any modifications to the channel itself?
Well, the only modification will be down where the GVI and Cow Creek cross,
Okay.
because KDHE has already said you can't send this water down Cow Creek. And so right now, Cow Creek runs right through the GVI.
Right.
And so we'll have to, and that's one of the other challenges, is figuring out a design that will take this water during no flow conditions, when it's not raining, and take that water underneath Cow Creek and come back up on the other side so that it can continue to flow on down to the Arkansas River. So a little bit of an engineering challenge there.
This doesn't have any implication for our stormwater problems, does it?
No, and is another thing that we want to look at though, and make sure, because it's 2 million gallons a day of water
Yeah.
that we'll be putting into the GVI. Want to make sure that we're not impacting the hydraulic capacity for our stormwater flows for the GVI.
Okay.
So that's another thing that we will double check.
Mayor, when Brian and I discussed this, I came up with kind of a layperson's perspective of this. And that is, we're permitted to keep shoving water underground, pretty much, I wouldn't say for as long as we want, but for an extended period of time. But what we're hearing from an environmental standard is, get ready, at some future point in time, you're gonna be required to handle this differently. And so, while we do wanna be, good stewards environmentally, the reality is, I think at some point in future time, we're gonna be required to come up with a solution for this. And the raising water is a factor that I think probably hits red on your warning meter when it comes to your specific work. So thank you for explaining that to me earlier and the layperson's perspective.
Yeah.
Is this something that we should do now, though, is my only question?
Well,
'Cause
I have been approached by 2 legislators in our delegation that have expressed concern about those disposal wells and if they have any impact on earthquakes in the South Hutchinson area. So I think you're smart to consider that future legislation might mandate that we bypass this some way. I don't know that KGS has found any, I don't know, any truth to that theory, but I know that it's being discussed. So I'd rather do it proactively than reactively if we can, but
And the feedback that I've seen, at least from the oil and gas industry, is they're pretty excited about Hutchinson not putting 2 million gallons of water that doesn't need to go down into Arbuckle Formation, because
frees up for
it's
them.
a huge resource for that industry. It's
Yeah.
a very valuable resource for them.
Yeah, but by the same token, we don't want to create a toxic stream through town, too.
For sure.
So,
Yeah.
you know, I think it's important that we figure out the monitoring and
Yes.
all that stuff as well.
Well, yeah, I look forward to hearing the outcome, what can be done. Is there a motion on this item or further questions for Brian?
One
What-
quick comment, Brian. Is it true that our water treatment plant had a big part of this to clean our water up, boy? Our water treatment plant has a big part of this to clean our water up, and why we don't have to, we can switch it now.
Yes, yes,
Right.
the water treatment centers played a huge role in this environmental cleanup. Key piece.
So
Of
that
that.
was worth what we did with the water treatment plant and putting it in. It's all worth it now.
It is worth it now, and it protects the city's water supply from now and into the future, and any future regulations that are required.
Is there gonna be higher risk with not dumping it into the
I'm sorry, what's
deep
that?
wells? Is there gonna be higher recontamination risk not dumping
No.
into the?
No, there won't be, and again, that's where the monitoring comes into play, and that's where we're gonna have an NPDES permit that limits
Yeah.
different levels of nitrogen, of phosphorus, of chlorides, and we'll have to make sure that we're meeting those limits in our permit from KDHE.
My only concern really, honestly, is if we do the assessment now, but then we don't get around to doing anything about it because we have pretty long, like 26 years, or let's say 5 or 10 years to decide on it, and then the assessment we did is null and void because of different, like, are we ready to actually commit to it before doing the assessment is my only thing. Because you don't know if we decide to do this and it passes regulation now, but in 3 years, there's different regulation and we can no longer dump it into the Arkansas River. But we hadn't got around to committing to do the $4 million project because of the price tag, and things have changed, and then we just wasted our money doing this feasibility study. Does that make sense?
It does, absolutely, and I agree with you on the $4 million price tag, and to me,
Yeah.
that was a long-term project, maybe looking at 5 to 10 years out.
Yeah.
But if we're able to discharge into the GVI channel, it's going to significantly reduce the price tag of that project.
Okay.
And to me, that accelerates the project.
That accelerates the project.
In my mind, and my plan would be, assuming this study comes back the way I think it will, is that we implement that project maybe as early as next year.
Okay, that was my
I was gonna say,
question.
we're going to see it on your CIP for next year.
It's already in the CIP for
Yeah,
2021.
That was my question. As long as we're, because when it comes to these certain kind of things, it's very, don't want to do a study and then 6 years later, you haven't got it done yet. That was my only concern.
Wait that long, the study's no longer valid. I'm going to move to approve the agreement with Burns and McDonald for professional engineering services for reverse osmosis waste stream disposal options feasibility study, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Dayline?
Yes?
Soldner?
Yes.
Bagwell?
Yes.
Garza?
Yes.
Tyros de Carvalho.
Yes, next item, please.
Item 8G, update on detox treatment facility.
There it is right there. I didn't see it on the agenda.
Mayor,
All right.
thanks. A little background on this. This is not really set up for formal action. It's really reaffirming previous action of this governing body. It was a unanimous vote. It was conducted in January of this year. And that was a $50,000 pledge for New Beginnings to construct in cooperation with other outside agencies, or at least support construction of a detox center. And the funds are available. I don't think we're at risk of anything there, but I did want to just get a head nod, reaffirm from the governing body, because we did have some disruption from COVID, and wanted to make sure everybody was still supportive of that pledge. We're not necessarily under contract, but the request has been renewed and certainly explained to me, and I think we're all on board, but I did want to reaffirm that. Sheriff Gonzalez is here today to give any further explanation, should you guys wish to have
Oh,
it.
yes, I'd like to hear an update on the progress and if you've received other outside funding to reach your goal to get it done.
Shara Gonzalez, New Beginnings. As of now, the architectural drawings are in your inspection department waiting for a building permit. We have a signed agreement with him, a signed agreement with the contractor, which is Art Borsky Construction. So when we have the building permit, we can begin construction. The first part of which is the putting in the fire suppression system, the sprinkling system. The contractor estimates we're 90 days out from completion. That's how long it'll take. And we have raised all the money, $516,000. I think I put down, New Beginnings is putting in 20%. The SAC has put in 10%, and private investors have put in 50%. That leaves the county, which we will approach again. They had set aside the money. We weren't available for the time. They put it back in the general fund, but I've had communication with them, and we'll be back there after this meeting here with them for their $50,000. That completes the budget.
Okay, great.
Harold Casey for Substance Abuse Center of Kansas is here. And he can tell you about the operation if you're interested. What the, because we're the developers, but he's the operator.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for your time. I am Harold Casey, the director of the Substance Abuse Center of Kansas. We have been open since 1995, working in Hutchinson and at this point 28 other counties other than Reno County across the state of Kansas. What we're looking to be able to provide is a 36-bed men's facility. In providing detox and treatment, we haven't really completely figured out if we want to do some beds for women for detox, but there are multiple women's treatment centers in the state of Kansas that we refer to now. And the waiting list for a indigent male who's not a priority population is about 3 to 4 months out. So if we assess someone today and they're eligible for treatment under state funding, they're probably going to wait till February, maybe even as long as March, to be able to get into treatment to get a bed. So that's part of what we want to address is that waiting list. We'll be hiring around 18 staff. We have a residential detox facility in Wichita. That presently costs us about $650,000 to $700,000 a year, and we have about 16 staff that work out of that facility. We've had that open for about 5 years. This is similar, although since we're doing treatment, we'll need some additional staff. That'll be probably about 4 licensed counselors, and so it'll be a couple of hundred more thousand a year. And we're hoping to break even, maybe make a little money. But our goal is to provide a service. And what we typically, my program, board of directors, really try and look at is filling service gaps, and then trying to look at savings.
Yeah.
The cost savings for the detox in Wichita, for the community, and we have WSU do a cost savings analysis every year. For the state hospital, the local hospitals in Wichita, the police department, the sheriff's department, EMS, you're looking at a cost savings of around 12 million.
Yeah,
year.
my one question is, for the open beds here in Hutchinson, is there gonna be a commitment to make sure that our residents are the ones getting the beds, and you're not filling in seats from other counties with the
Well, right
available
now,
open beds?
we're doing assessments at the Reno County Jail, at the hospital, and in our office. And we're referring those people to treatment in other areas of the state of Kansas, and they're on a long-term waiting list to get in. So that really is the goal here. We see a lot of demand. We have people that go to our detox in Wichita that are from Reno County. And so, I mean, I don't have a number that, we would say 20 or 30%, but it'll be more than that. I mean, for the number of assessments that we're doing and for the number of people we have from the city of Hutchinson and Reno County that are on the waiting list. Sadly enough, the truth is probably within about 2 months, we'll be full and there'll be still a waiting list.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to shorten that waiting list and set up priorities for people that, are really medically in trouble, but also addressing legal issues.
And you said you're only gonna do men because there's a higher waiting list?
There is no waiting list for women at this point to get into treatment.
Okay.
If you're a pregnant woman, if you're a woman with child, if you have a medical card, I can get you into treatment in 2 to 3 days.
Yeah.
But for a male who doesn't have a medical card, who's indigent, it's going to be 3 to 4 months to wait. So that really is a service gap. And talking to Sarah over the last, 8 years, we've been trying to figure out a way to address this. That has always been our highest priority, is addressing that waiting list to get people into treatment sooner. We know that if we assess somebody, refer them to treatment, they have to wait, then,
They'll just
2
go
weeks,
out and do
2 months, we're
drugs
starting
until-
over again.
Yeah.
So they're back in jail, they're back in the
Yeah.
hospital. They're coming back from the state hospital. And
Yeah, because they reaffirmed to themselves, well, I'm just gonna live this lifestyle and do this until this date because I know a
Well,
lot of-
part of that is, we try to put people in outpatient treatment while they're on
Mhm.
the waiting list.
Yeah.
We provide case management, but they're actively using, and they're generally not living in a supportive environment. They're living with other people that are drinking or using, or they're homeless, or they're coming in and out of a shelter, and there's just not a lot of support. So they relapse and continue to use, and then they get back into, again, the hospital, the jail, some kind of the shelter, and then you're starting all over again. But as far as we're addressing the people within this community, yes, that's the whole purpose of the project. It's difficult to get people back and forth to Wichita. This is typically a population that has trouble with transportation. They either don't have a vehicle or they don't have a driver's license because they've lost that due to their, legal circumstances. They don't have any money because they're not working. Their car's broken down. They don't have the money to fix it. And so it becomes a real issue. I know when we were looking at this a year ago, we were working with 5 women that were pregnant that were on medication-assisted treatment and having to go to Wichita every day to get their medication.
Yeah. Is it gonna help? That's what I'm saying, with my personal experience with a woman, and, I think SAC offered a gas voucher to
Mhm.
get them out to Wichita, but they couldn't even find someone to take them out.
Right.
To use the gas voucher, let alone. So that was my only concern about it only being men, is because you'd still have that problem with them not
Well,
being
what
able
we
to use
want
the
to
gas
do
voucher.
is be able to work with the local service providers and help establish those kinds of, services that maybe we don't have now.
Yeah.
But that really kind of has to start with a residential program, so we have a place to put people.
Okay.
I don't know that we've decided not to work with women. It's just, in talking to
There's that
Shar and other
higher
people
need, yeah.
in the community, that seems to be the highest kind of priority. But it is our goal to work with, Horizons, with the health department in the local community, Prairie Star, for services that we can purchase for our clients.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much.
Well, Harold, I think the fact that 50% of needed funds for this project were raised privately shows broad support in the community for services like this, and signifies that there is indeed a gap that needs to be met. So I appreciate the work you and Shara have put into moving this project forward, and I look forward to it coming to fruition and beginning to help people and investing in those people who we know can give back in meaningful ways if they are offered support.
Yeah, we're certainly committed to this project and to working in this area. My board of directors, or the board of directors of SAC, has donated $50,000 toward this project. So it really is something we're committed to. It's not, it's not working in a year. We're not going to leave town or anything of that sort. We're committed to working here and working with this population. Our detox center in Wichita, we get funding of about $650,000. It cost about $725 to do that, and yet we're still continuing to do that. We're hoping that this year that we'll break even, but we understand that in working with this population and being a nonprofit, that's part of the deal. That's part of the commitment and the population you're working with.
I think it really needs to be done. So
Yes.
I'm very excited that we're getting this done. We're going to be able to have that opportunity for people out there that really want to get their lives together, that just quite doesn't know how or like where to start, and not having to have to go to Wichita or have those traveling hindrances that kind of keep them away. I definitely think it's going to improve the available workforce too, also in the city. I mean, get more people off of drugs and working to better their lives. I think all around it's a good deal. I just think that it's just
I'm in
really a great
recovery. I
thing.
sobered up in 1981 after treatment. I think the important thing about that is looking at, again, how that affects folks over the long haul. Now I have 90 employees. They're paying taxes. About 40, 50 of those employees are also in recovery and helping other people. And I think that's going to continue. But that's the long-term benefit of this. Is you have people that are indigent going to treatment. The state's paying for their treatment. But as they get sober, they become productive people in the community that help other recovering people, but they also are paying taxes, and generally they're successful. So there's a long-term payout for
Yes,
all
I
of
agree
this.
completely, 100%.
Can I say just one more thing, and that is, I think that what's unique here is that the community has put together a system in which people, a way in which people can move from desperation, because from this point we have now 10 Oxford houses within Hutchinson, so there's a place to go to out there, And New Beginnings is putting a housing person with this project so that if that's not the option, we can help find other stable places to live. And then we also have the transitional jobs program, of which most of the folks there are in recovery.
Yeah.
So there is a way in which to move people, not just give them something and then leave them. There's a way to move people out.
And I 100% love the program that New Beginnings does with because it gives people an opportunity to work in a safe place with other people that are recovering. So they're not out there having to deal with people that may be under the influence,
Right.
like working at
And in a toxic work
in a toxic
environment.
work environment, because there are
Right.
places like that.
Right.
And then, so you have the Oxford, then you have the work program, and now we're going to have the detox. So I understand exactly what you're saying, because I've seen it really does work. If a person wants to put in the effort, they have all the tools that they need.
There. Now, the
There.
saddest thing in the world is to get so far and not have that other rung in the ladder
Yeah.
to move forward. So I think the community's done a good job of seeing that it takes more than just one item. So yes, I just wanted to let you know that it's actually a more complete system than just the detox and inpatient treatment facility, but that's been the huge missing piece.
Yes.
That we've worked a long time to get. Thank you, Harold, for.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. That's, I think I see consistent head nods in this. I certainly don't hear anybody objecting to it, so.
No.
Thank you all.
Good luck with the county. Okay, next item, please.
Item 9, report of city officials.
Let's start with you, Sarah.
I don't have anything to report today other than hang in there. Teachers and parents, hang in there.
All right, what about you, Steve?
Yes, I'd like to say about our former council member Bob Bush, who passed away last Monday, I believe. I wish his family my condolences for that. He was a good man, and I was very sad to hear that. So, other than that, I went to the Hutch High football game. You know, I love football and I love young people. They did a real good job. If you get a chance, go support them. They're awesome. They're going to be playing another good game this Friday, so support them. And I read in the paper about a couple of weeks ago about our Hutch High girls tennis team. I believe they won a big, huge mark in there, and so I wish them all the luck. And last but not least, please wear your face mask and do the best you can. I was one of the believers about not the face mask until I got it, and I found out how bad that is. So let's try to help each other and be respectful to each other. So other than that, that's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well said. Thank you, Steve. What about you, Nancy?
Nothing.
Okay, John? Okay. I had a few items. I too wanted to acknowledge the passing of a long-term public servant in Bob Bush. He served as mayor twice here, was on council for 8 years, and served nearly 4 years as a commissioner. The city was made better by his service, and all of our thoughts, I know, are with his family right now. Wanted to give kudos to the planning department. I received some input from a constituent who was pretty upset about a particular issue and has been working on this issue for quite some time, and they were very complimentary of the way Amy and Ryan in planning walked them through their concern and resolved it. And then lastly, wanted to bring up the issue of Severance Street tennis courts. Apparently there's some damage on those courts, and a question as to whether the city or the school district is responsible for repairing that, or if that needs to be handled by private citizens who maybe were the cause of the damage. This issue has resulted in multiple calls on both sides, emails, and even in-person meetings. So I know it's kind of reaching a tipping point, and I know Justin has a long-term solution in moving pickleball players to the Rice Park courts, but as far as repairing the Seventh Street courts so that future tournaments can be played there. Do you have any insight into that?
Mayor, I do not, but I know that that's been an ongoing discussion. I'll get with Justin and see what some of the options are. I know we have a complex agreement that has been problematic for us in kind of dicing some of these issues out as we go forward. That's probably been the biggest hindrance to it. Budget-wise, I don't think that it's a huge item for us based on comparisons, cost comparisons with other tennis courts that I've seen. So I don't know that the dollars are the huge issue here. I think it's probably more an issue of the agreement.
Okay,
So I will get with Justin and we'll see what options we can return to you all.
great. I look forward to a resolution, and I'm sure the school district does too, because they're hearing from both sides as well. So that's been interesting, and that is all I have.
Thank you, Mayor. Are you ready for me?
Yes, I
Okay,
am.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, the Atrium Tour, I believe we have a date set up of October 27th, 2:00 p.m. I'm hoping that works for everybody to get us in there. And I'm looking at the weather, and it's a little ways out, but they're showing that's going to be a nice cold day for us. So probably good we set it up midday. Also, we had discussions at the last meeting on an RFP for Art Canoe and other potential interested parties for Fun Valley. And we have a tentative date and time set up for November 10th, 6:00 p.m. That's a Tuesday. So we'll send a reminder out for everybody on that. But that would be an opportunity and an occasion where these interested parties would once again renew their interest in their proposals for this potential piece of property. Several areas on that property, actually. You've probably seen on Main, the signboard that we have up. We're anticipating a street closure at Main and 5th. That'll be a 30-day anticipated closure from October 26th to November 26th. This will allow the contractor to expedite some of the construction work in that area and get it moving a little faster, hopefully. We're not especially happy about the inconvenience, but we do realize that it's going to allow that project to go faster. Okay, the one that probably takes a few minutes here is a request from a local developer. You guys are probably familiar with this individual, Christian Abla, very nice guy. I spoke with him several times. He is the principal and owner of Classic Real Estate, and he has interest in properties over by the mall. And the city did a previous CID agreement with this individual. That's Community Improvement District. You're all familiar where the sales tax are collected, that gets remitted back to the original developer. And these have been alive in Kansas for some time. They're allowed to amortize out over 22 years. And most of those were entered into under pretty straightforward pro forma agreements when they first came out, and they didn't have any specific call provisions for a developer that divests himself and sells these parcels out and then still has a mechanism for collecting these dollars. And it's a philosophical question, really, as to whether or not, one, was it intended to do that? Two, mechanically, would our agreement even allow us to do that currently? And I think the answer is probably no. It would require an amendment. And so they do have an interest in pursuing that with the city to see if the city would have an appetite to amend the current agreement to allow them to collect those funds, even if they divest themselves from ownership of the property. This would then put other people in the position of constructing without the benefit fully of the CID.
Well, I don't feel like that CID has been properly invested into the infrastructure that's public around. I mean, if we're talking about parking lots, and I mean, that's what those funds, those are the sorts of project those funds are intended for, right?
I would have to look at the original agreement, but I believe that was part of it, for sure.
And unless I'm mistaken, those have not been maintained as they maybe should have been. Which properties, because he's got the Orscheln and the restaurants, right? Or just the restaurants?
No, he has just Verizon.
Council, these are the outlots.
These are the outlaws.
Yeah.
These are the outlots where Pizza Ranch and
Verizon and Chick-fil-A.
Verizon and Chick-fil-A.
And he wants to sell part of them?
And there's an Express Wellness.
Yeah, that's going in.
There's
Yeah,
something
that's
going in, I saw.
And really, the request is that, and I understand business owners wanting to maximize their profits. But what he's wanting to do is to take improvements that are made by Express Wellness and be reimbursed
That
to him.
2%, no.
with the CID funds, the sales taxes.
I'm pretty sure that's not how that was intended to work.
No, I don't think it was either.
No, I don't think that was the intent.
Well, and that's why it would require an amendment to the contract, because currently it would not be allowed.
I'm
That was kind of a
curious.
surprise to, I think, all of us, that the CID funds stay with the initial developer.
And they do. We've had that with other CIDs,
Yeah, right.
with
hotels.
hotels that have been built
Hotels,
and then
yep.
sold, and they continue to receive the CID sales taxes, and they've made improvements. They had to have paid for it, but then they sell the property and they still collect.
For how
I think you have to
long?
look at it in the but-for clause. That but for not the CID would the project go forward? And you have to me, you have to demonstrate that.
Well, that's the guidance we're definitely looking for as we discuss this.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that it was not a possibility of occurring. It's just that most of these agreements across the state didn't define it to this degree when they first came out and they were entered into. And so, of course, when we get a question from
Yeah.
a developer and this team of attorneys, we want to bring it back and make sure we're on the same page with you all, and we thought that we were, and I still do. So,
Well, and I'm interested in maintaining a good relationship with this developer because,
Certainly.
you know, he has invested in this town, but I'm not interested in
Been
that.
pretty liberal. We have been really pretty liberal.
How long does that stay in effect?
I believe it's 22 years.
22.
Is that the norm, or do they vary from project to project?
They can vary, but most take the 22.
They do.
I was gonna say that, I
22.
think all the ones we've approved
of
have been 22
They take the
years.
22, do they? Yeah.
Those are really unpopular with the public anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, we did what we had to do, but
Okay. Thank you all. I think what we will do at this point is inform them of kind of the general gut reaction and the feeling of the governing body so that they can weigh their resources a little bit as to whether or not they want to pursue it further. That's helpful. Thank you.
Do you know what what other cities typically, are those agreements similar to ours, the Salinas and the Wichitas and so on?
They are. And normally, you see the full 22 years taken because they normally maximize the anticipated sales activity of that area or that
Right.
district. The ones that get really trickier are the ones that come in and acquire, for instance, an existing shopping retail center, and they want to add on, and they force those previous merchants into this agreement and stack them with an additional 1%.
Yeah.
And so you don't always have the appetite for the merchants to do that, or the customers. And so that's a problem. But even under that
And that
scenario,
happened here.
even under that scenario, you can still do that
It
because there's a
happens.
provision that calls, I think, for 55 or 60% participation, that you could still force merchants into that. They wouldn't be happy. But that is typical. The best situation, I agree, is the but-for clause. If the CID didn't exist, the development wouldn't occur. So when you enact it and you approve it, you have development that occurs that would have otherwise not have happened. I think that's the most ideal situation. A developer, and even in this case, will probably articulate to a certain extent that infrastructure wouldn't have occurred, that would have facilitated improvements on a singular lot
Right.
had they not made this investment. That's probably the argument you would hear from this individual. Again, it gets a little bit philosophical, so.
Well, Christian's been he's done several good projects here.
Yeah, that's my understanding,
And he's a sharp business guy, so,
for sure.
but whether that was the intent ultimately, it definitely, I question it.
Thank you all.
Mr. Country, I got a question. Being a new council member, does that have something to do with the bed tax? Is that tied in with the bed tax? That's totally different.
It is not. This is a separate instrument. Although there are occasions, certain developments, you can stack that. But
Okay.
this is not one of those.
Okay.
so for instance, when you go to the mall and you pay 1% more,
I got you.
that's the result of a CID.
One more question. Who, Chick-fil-A, is that new building Chick-fil-A next to Chick-fil-A?
That's correct.
Okay, what's the name of that again?
Yeah, I think it's Express Wellness Urgent Care.
Yeah, I've been getting a lot of questions and Express. Okay, thank you.
Mayor, council, thank you. That's all I have. I'll rest for questions. Thank you.
Okay. Questions or a motion to adjourn?
Motion to,
Go.
oh,
Go
motion
ahead.
to adjourn.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, please call the roll.
Dave Line.
Yes.
Soldner.
Yes.
Bagwell.
Yes.
Garza.
Yes.
Pyrus de Carvalho.
Yes.